the Linked Horizon Megastructure, one of the largest builds on 2B2T, enclosing spawn in a 2,048 block diameter and making spawn in complete darkness. Not that many players know why it was built or the amount of effort put into it. Today in this video, you'll learn about the Linked Horizon Megastructure and how over 100 players helped change 2B2T spawn region forever. The story begins with a player named Omega O0000. He had an idea of creating 3 circular obsidian walls around spawn in the style of the Japanese anime Attack on Titan. However, the purpose of these walls were to not keep out titans or new players. Rather, it was meant to be something massive, interesting, and permanent on 2B2T. Omega would message his friends and create a Discord server on January 4th, 2021 with the name Linked Horizon. And after gathering a building team, it was clear that only one wall could realistically be built. A player named Iron Exception suggested a radius of 2,048 blocks, which he previously determined to be 2B2T's player spawning radius, giving the wall a real purpose. To make it harder for players to mine and withers eroding the wall, the builders decided to make it 3 blocks thick. In total, the project would need around 8 million obsidian to complete, so in order to get that much obsidian, the group messaged a player named Thebes and Sound. Thebes had almost an infinite amount of obsidian from the chunk dupe, and he agreed to help fund the project. During the first few days of construction, Linked Horizon had its highest number of concurrent builders. Many members regarded the start as the most enjoyable time of the project because of the great community involved. However, the number of active builders gradually declined in mid-January, although the rate of progress remained relatively constant. By March, interest had dropped, and progress was largely maintained by just 3 players: Pyru, Futsin1, and Baticope. These players eventually completed the vast majority of the wall, and on May 12, 2021, the Linked Horizon wall was successfully completed with a total of 8,240,000 blocks of obsidian, and over 100 players helping along the way. After the completion of the Linked Horizon wall in May 2021, the group took a break for a while and decided to build a small obsidian robot in the spawn water cube. While building the robot, a player named Nonus suggested for the group to add something to the Horizon wall, but most members were still mainly focused on building the robot before planning another project. After completing it, there were still members, especially Nonus, who were craving for another project. Futsin1, Nonus, and a few other members threw around different ideas, such as a circular lava wall or a spawn base, but ended up with the obvious choice: a roof to the Horizon wall. However, there was a problem. 2 of the major contributors of the Horizon wall, Pyru and Baticope, showed very little support for the new project. They were burned out after placing obsidian for around 4 months in the spring. Although Nonus was completely motivated for the project, Futsin had his worries. He was scared other groups might dislike the project and would annoy the spawn masons, who created a massive obsidian group logo at spawn. If the roof was added, it would completely erase the smaller spawn masons logo and fill in parts of the larger logo. The project's plans were put on hold, and not much was planned for a while. During July of 2021, a group called Infinity Incursion had launched their Water Cube expansion project, which saw great and almost constant opposition of players looking to protect spawn from being filled with water and fighting the builders. Their project was ultimately a failure, and the Infinity Incursion disbanded before they could complete their goal. Not looking to fall into a similar trap and looking to preserve their group's good reputation, the Linked Horizon members debated starting the project. They were scared there might be players that would oppose them for destroying many smaller logos, but ultimately, Futsin was convinced for a couple of reasons. The Infinity Incursion was a bigger group with more haters. Futsin believed that since his group was a smaller and less controversial group, that it would be less likely to be targeted. He also believed that if the project had a purpose, which it did by adding to the horizon wall and covering older logos from disbanded groups, it would be less disliked. So, with the addition of group members convincing Futsen, the project was finally announced. Before starting the project, they needed to decide on a couple of things: how much obsidian they would need, how could they automate the construction, and how long would it take to construct the entire roof. The group knew how much obsidian they approximately needed. The entire perimeter created by the horizon wall is over 13 million blocks, but about half was already placed by other obsidian logos. The group assumed they would need around 8 million obsidian, which Iron Exception was able to determine more correctly after taking a world download. Like for the horizon wall, obsidian was provided by Thebes and Sound. He would periodically restock the group on all the materials they needed, including pickaxes, ender chests, and obsidian. The group was optimistic that they would finish the project within 2 months, or in early to mid-September. But in order to do this, they would need to find hack modules that would make construction faster. The group's plan for construction was simple. They would build in a zigzag pattern from south to north and have Iron Exception take world downloads to track their progress. Similar to how they constructed the horizon wall, they used a module called Scaffold, which allows a player to speed bridge without shifting and places blocks below you automatically. However, since they were building at build height, the server wouldn't allow them to place obsidian from the top, but Nonus had a trick up his sleeve. He learned how to build below the height limit using a module called Anti-No-Fall from a player named Kumerman. Nonus would then show this technique to the group, and construction became much faster, but there was still a lot more they could do. A player named Enigma_008 showed the group how to use Lambda Client, which included modules like Auto Obsidian and Highway Tools. This allowed them to automatically mine and place obsidian. Construction began on July 6, 2021. At first, progress was fast and driven largely by Nonus, who placed almost 2 million obsidian in the first month. This made members motivated to join, and after 1 to 2 weeks into the project, progress was at its highest rates after Futsen, Nonus, and many others joined full-time, placing obsidian. As the group placed obsidian little by little, they hit 50% by mid-August, and their goal of finishing the project was going to be reality. However, there was a problem. Building the roof was more difficult than the wall since it was at build height, which meant mining ender chests for more obsidian was not AFKable. This meant that obsidian in a player's inventory had to be manually refilled and would have to find a place below the sky to mine ender chests and then return to place them. With this happening over and over again, players began to fatigue and burn out. Nonus became exhausted and left 2B2T, while Futsen and a member from the Horizon Wall, Spetroka, as well as many other members, began their first semesters of university. After the fall of 2021, progress continued, but only slowly. Some weeks only Futsen would place obsidian, sometimes Spetroka, sometimes someone else, and sometimes no one at all. Constant wither damage and obsidian erosion during this time were frustrating, and it felt as if more progress was being lost than gained. There was also an attempt to enlist the help of the 2B2C community. The group knew that the server would be more crowded during the autumn break, so they began placing advertisements to draw attention to the project. While many new faces began to pitch in, there was still no solid progress. During this time, Spetroka and Futsen were largely motivated by the 2 million obsidian that Nonus had already placed, and they wanted to finish the project for him and the others who had worked so hard for a project that seemed doomed to fail. Despite Futsen's determination on walking back and forth to patch every last hole, even in existing parts of the Spawn Mason's logo, he agreed with Spetroka that they needed to cut corners to finish the project and ignore filled-in regions, even those with holes, and complete those at the end. Slowly but steadily, progress was made, and with the arrival of winter, players began to return and get back on the grind. mainly the players The Spire, who was a new contributor and placed 500,000 obsidian, Speroka, who placed 900,000 obsidian, and Futsin, who placed 1,200,000 obsidian. As more players got off school or work and realized the project was still going, progress accelerated rapidly. The night before the celebration party on January 16th, 2022, the last blocks of obsidian, besides the holes, were already placed. This was intentional as they needed to use the hype of the project's completion to patch up the numerous holes around 00 and the above water cube. Over 20 players helped on the last day to patch most of the holes. The group worked into the night and completed the final world download and tallied up the blocks. Although the group never finished 100%, they were happy with 99.9% completion on the project. Linked Sky makes up over 13 million obsidian, and the Horizon Wall over 8 million, bringing the total obsidian count to 21 million blocks, making the Linked Horizon megastructure one of the largest on the server. It's also one of the largest structures by volume in survival Minecraft, at over 3 billion blocks, or 3,000 times the volume of the Empire State Building. The group learned that no matter how long a project is delayed or how difficult it appears, it's always possible to finish. The group doesn't have any major plans for the future, since many members are burnt out or busy after the long project, but they do plan to patch up the wall on its 1-year anniversary in May 2022. Who knows what the future holds for the Linked Horizon megastructure, and perhaps another gigantic structure will emerge at spawn one day.